What is up, everyone? Welcome to my September TBR. And September is my birthday month, so yes. I will say, I'm not a fan of the gift giving, like back and forth, like either giving or receiving gifts. And I've been asked, especially now in the past few weeks, at least a few times, like, oh, what's your Amazon wish list, whatever. Like, and I prefer to like just not do the whole gift giving or receiving thing. And it's nothing against like any of you personally or anything. And I'm like happy that I've made like a lot of good friends and good connections here on BookTube that people want to give me gifts and stuff like that. But it's just not really me. So I'd prefer not to receive like a ton of gifts. Anyway, thank you. So moving on into the actual TBR. What are we doing in the wonderful month of September, the beginning of autumn? Well, first, the September buddy read is The Ember Blade by Chris Wooden, and I am doing a live show with Kate, the Almost Book Doctor, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. That should be a bunch of fun. The Ember Blade is it was written recently, but it reads like a classic fantasy, I'm told. Also, Curtis realized that we all dropped the ball in my Discord and didn't come up with the pun SeptEmber Blade instead of Ember Blade. Oh, so good, so good. I did the thing where I explained the joke and made it less funny, but what a pun. Welcome to the month of September Blade. Up next, we've got Red Rising. And man, Red Rising seems like a book that I will like. My birthday is one day off from my friend Ina's birthday, and she is reading The Way of Kings, which is like one of my favorite books, obviously. I love Sanderson, and I am reading Red Rising, which is one of her favorite books, so it's just perfect. Also, I'm buddy reading this with Casey from the End Pages, because she also happened to be reading it right now, so yay, buddy reads. And the Red Rising basically is kind of like a sci-fi futuristic thing, and it follows around a bunch of miners on an asteroid, and their working conditions are just atrocious, and it sounds like it's pretty tough for them. So there's definitely the worker versus owner class struggle, which I love that in fantasy books, obviously. And there's almost some, quite frankly, Marxist language. when I was talking about the Communist Manifesto on my conservative friend Ponderings with Pete's channel, I had to reread the Communist Manifesto, and I quoted the last line, which is, "The only thing holding you back is your chains," or something. And someone's like, oh my gosh, that's like the same thing from Red Rising. And I'm like, wow. So this sounds like a Marxist story. It uses like Marxist language of proletariat versus bourgeoisie. So it probably will be interesting. And also for context, in like the mid 1800s when Marx was writing stuff, the owner class of the factories was extremely brutal. And if you like did strikes or whatever, they would kill you, essentially. So like when I think of like kind of like dystopian, like horrible situations for workers to be in, I kind of think of more of that era in time, or like the early 1900s, where the owners of factories, of mining companies, etc., were just like extremely brutal. And obviously that's horrible, but it makes a good fantasy book, right? We've got like armed conflict, and then with like sci-fi future technology, man, Red Rising sounds awesome in concept just because of that. And I hear the writing gets better as the series goes on. So I think if this first book really grabs me, I'm going to really enjoy the series. Speaking of Pete, we're going to be reading the Gulag archipelago with Pete again, Christy Lewis, Duff I Ask in Space, and Billy this time as well is hopefully joining us, and we're going to read the unabridged version, so the 3 volumes, and it should be interesting because I don't know too much about the Soviet Union gulags. I kind of just know the top line. I know, like, they were bad and they killed a lot of people. And there was a lot of ethnic discrimination. And yeah, I mean, if you guys have seen this channel, I'm obviously on the left, but I'm certainly not a defender of the Soviet Union. In a lot of ways, the Soviet Union was not really on the left. They were super authoritarian, basically totalitarian. And I'm against authority ruling over the people in that way. I'm a big fan of democracy. I'm against things like monarchy, theocracy, one-party states where people don't have voting rights, or like, whatever. 80-90% of people don't have voting rights, as it was in the Soviet Union. So yeah, it should be interesting to learn more. We're going to split it up in reading one volume per month for the next 3 months, I think. There's no hard schedule, but I think I'm going to be reading a lot of this in September. Oh, and I'm sorry, I've got to address one thing. The introduction to the newest version of the Gulag archipelago was done by Jordan Peterson. Now, I know a bit about Jordan Peterson, unfortunately, just because I was a psychology major and that is his field, and he's said some controversial things in psychology, and I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of all that on a TBR video, but I will respect that Jordan Peterson has at least read source material for psychology. Like, he's read Carl Jung, he's read Freud, he's done the baseline things needed to be a doctorate in psychology. However, he goes way out of his lane. The Gulag archipelago has nothing to do with psychology. Or, I mean, look, I guess you could make the argument that everything has something to do with psychology, but it has very little to do with psychology. I would want a historian doing this intro, or maybe a political scientist or something. I don't know, a psychologist? And also, I'm willing to give people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to going outside of their lane. If they have a good history and they seem to have put in the groundwork of learning things, Jordan Peterson absolutely has not. In the past, he humiliated himself, quite frankly, in a discussion with Slavoj Žižek. And in this debate, Peterson said that he hadn't read the Communist Manifesto since he was 18, and that he had just reread it a few days prior, which I guess begs the question, why is he so adamantly against Marx when he hasn't read any Marx? Or maybe he's read other things Marx has written, potentially. It's just so weird, though, because of how much Peterson has criticized Marxism and is known for criticizing Marxism. The best equivalent I can think of right now is trying to study for a geometry test without knowing the Pythagorean theorem. You know what I'm saying? He's just lacking just very baseline knowledge. He just hasn't done the baseline work to, have that discussion. And it's okay to be for or against Marxism and to not have read everything Marx has ever written. But I'm not gonna take you super seriously. I'll hear you out, but Jordan Peterson has proven time and time again to be a pseudo-intellectual on anything outside of the field of psychology. So I may have to do a separate video addressing some of his claims made in the intro. And I haven't even read the intro yet, but just knowing Jordan Peterson and knowing how much of a pseudo-intellectual he is, I think I may have to do that, because I don't want to derail the live show, by talking about an intro done by a pseudo-intellectual hack who probably wasn't even chosen by the author of this book, who's probably been deceased for a while. Let's see. Yes, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, author of the Gulag Archipelago, died in 2008, so he obviously had nothing to do with Jordan Peterson writing the intro to this book, which is really unfortunate. It tarnishes this guy's legacy, and he had nothing to do with this. But yeah, it should be interesting to read nonetheless. I will be talking about this in the Literary Discourses Discord, which I will link in the description, so come join that if you're interested. Up next, we've got The Great Hunt, Book 2 of The Wheel of Time. And I have not finished Book 1 yet, so there's very little I can say, but I'm almost halfway through with Book 1, and it's going to be exciting to talk about Book 2. I'm buddy reading all of these in my Discord. You guys can definitely join in, catch up with me and some of the other folks reading this, and it should be fun. It's a big commitment, 14-book series. If I get sick of it, I'll stop in the middle, but so far I'm liking Book 1. It is a bit slow, but I mean, I guess that's to be expected in a 14-book series. Anyway, next, The Shape of the Ruins. This is a historical fiction type of book by Juan Gabriel Vasquez, and it was originally written in Spanish. It involves the murder of a Colombian politician. So yeah, conspiracy, political intrigue, that sort of stuff. Seems like it'll be interesting. And I'm buddy reading this with Charmaine and Potato, who are the mods of my Discord, and Alicia Guzman. So this should be a bunch of fun. And of the countries in South America, Colombia is the country I know probably the least about, or close to the least about. I do know they've had a lot of political instability, so it's not far-fetched to think that they've had a murdered politician in their history. I mean, almost every country's had a murdered politician in their history. JFK, right? Certainly there's been a lot of conspiracies about that over the years, so this should be like the Colombian version of JFK assassination, plus some fiction, and you know, it should be awesome. Now, that is it. I'm going to try to read The Splinter King by Mike Brooks as well, because I loved The Black Coast so much, and I've got like a ton of sequels to read. You can probably watch my last TBR and see what I was trying to read in the previous months and just didn't get to. But yeah, that's everything. Like, comment, subscribe, join my Discord. And the wrap-up should be out in the next few days, hopefully. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys next time.